everyone. Welcome to our podcast. We are back at Potomac Station Coffee House in Dormont, and we have a great show for you tonight. But first, I'm Valerie, that's David, and this is our Gen X Pittsburgh podcast. Tonight's guest is Chris Briem. He is a regional economist with the University of Pittsburgh and author of Beyond Steel, Pittsburgh and the Economics of Transformation. Look at this book. Ooh, nice big thick book. And there are some pictures in there, just
nice,
so you know.
Thick book, she said.
I love it.
It's actually, I've been really excited about this show. There's, as much as this is a book about the economy of Pittsburgh, there's all kinds of fascinating facts that I'm not going to bring up now because I want to talk about them with Chris.
Yeah, there's some really...
But there's some really interesting things in here. Yeah. And if you grew up in Pittsburgh in the 80s or 90s, it really touches on a lot of what you may or may not know about. So
exactly,
it's really interesting. This is going to be a feisty show. Valerie's in a particularly interesting mood today, so it'll be neat to see how this show compares to other ones.
Yeah, why? Because of me? Or
because of you.
Oh my God,
That's
shut up.
Right. Because of you, because of the attitude we're getting today.
There's no attitude. No, I'm real excited about today. But you know what? Earlier we were talking about like some things back in the like 80s and 90s in Pittsburgh, and we talked about Spaghetti Warehouse.
Spaghetti Warehouse.
Oh man.
Love Spaghetti Warehouse.
God, I miss that place.
And Italian Oven.
Yeah.
Love that place too.
Yeah.
And
what other restaurants were around back then?
Rax.
Chi-Chi's. Rax?
Chi-Chi's.
Oh God, Rax. I don't think Rax is a restaurant.
Chi-Chi's. That's right.
Yeah, I can't.
Well, I mean, that's...
Oh, okay. Remember down in Market Square, there was, and we all, because, you know, you went to Point Park and to the Art Institute. There, what was that? Not George Akins. It was like, oh my gosh, right where the, is it like a, not a Quidobo, but no, not Moe's.
I don't know.
No, not Moe's.
There was a Chinese place.
No, it was not Woolworths. It was something.
Oh, it was Woolworths, 5 and dime.
Was it that? And you would get like the pizza rolls there.
I
remember that place.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. I remember that Chinese G.C. Murphy. That's it.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The Chinese place I remember. So for anyone that hasn't listened enough to pick up on it, I grew up in a suburb right outside of Pittsburgh, but it might as well have been 7,000 miles away. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was not urban. And so when I came to Point Park, one of the first things I did was go to Market Square to the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
Because Chinese food just seemed so incredibly urban to my...
And it was so cheap,
That's
too.
right.
Oh my God.
I think it was like $5 back then for, General Tso's. And boy, did I just feel like, I had made it. I was in the big city. This was it. And this was going to be the start of my urbane experience.
That's right. That's right.
Little did I know. Little did I know.
I can't even eat Chinese food anymore. Oh, God. Anyways, it happens when you're 56, right?
Lots of things start happening. I would say by the time you're 40.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everything starts falling apart.
Yeah. Mom, how old are you? Just kidding. My mom's in the audience tonight. All right, enough of that banter.
Yes.
We're going to take a quick sponsor break and we'll be right back. Support for the Gen X Pittsburgh podcast comes from Potomac Station Coffee House in Dormont. Serving fresh brewed coffee, house-made pastries, and seasonal specialty lattes, Potomac Station Coffee House is proud to support local storytelling and community. What is the Gen X Pittsburgh podcast? Let me take you back. Remember when coffee was king and pizza bagels rolled on the corner of 14th and Carson at the Beehive? Or how about that time you stumbled upon art all night? How cool was that? Or when your evening started instead of ended at 10 p.m.? Yeah, we miss those days too, so we're bringing them back one Gen X story at a time. Join David Rullo and I, Valerie Christoffel, as we sit down with the movers and shakers, the artists, and the voices who helped shape Pittsburgh back in the early 90s. Subscribe to the Gen X Pittsburgh podcast. Welcome back to the Gen X Pittsburgh podcast. Joining us tonight is Chris Briem. Thank you for joining us tonight.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So before we talk about your book, which I'm so excited to talk about, Can you give us a little background on your growing up, where you grew up, what life was like when you were younger?
Oh wow, we're in first date territory here. You know, so I was born here in Pittsburgh. I grew up mostly in Bloomfield and the South Side. Left for college, left for work, lived in New York and DC. Worked in New York, came back for grad school, and then inertia sets in and haven't left since. So,
all right.
So that's the crib note. So,
and what made you want to become an economist?
There's probably a long story there. I mean, I think I was going to be. Well, the long story is I was actually going to be a defense analyst long ago, and the Cold War ended. I had no job, and I worked my way down. I'm really more of a policy analyst and worked down from there. But I mean, there's a lot of the issues that we deal with are, fit in that space.
Sure.
And so that's where I'm at.
Wow.
Were you always into numbers and data? Did you ever want to be a firefighter or a cop or a veterinarian or?
I mean, I probably other things. I think I thought of being an architect once. And in grade school, this was the mid 80s. We'll talk about the mid 80s. And for a career day for my architect friends, I have many architect friends. But I've told this story before that this was the mid 80s, and the whoever came out from CMU most likely to talk about being an architect in the mid 80s was very dour. He was sort of like, there are no jobs,
Sure.
There won't be any jobs, won't be any jobs in the future. And so my architecture career ended that day.
Yeah.
But other than that, we've sort of done a lot of different things in that space, but that's it.
Cool.
Where I am.
That's journalism, by the way.
Oh yeah,
that's my career. There's no jobs. AI is going to steal everything. Right? You shouldn't do it. That's what every kids all get told now, right?
But some of you persist.
And buildings still get built, right? Yeah.
So what was life like before the steel collapsed for you, as opposed to after? How did that?
So my family was not a steel family per se. I've now known many folks who came from steel families. So, my family wasn't quite impacted by other things along the way. But, I can't say I lived on the South Side for a while,
Did you live on the slopes or up on the flats?
On the flats. So, I mean, I guess this was early 80s or 70s really. The J&L plant was there.
Yeah.
I today go over the Birmingham Bridge often. I remember it as the Brady Street Bridge. If you do our nostalgia here, I still have a bit of cognitive dissonance. Coming over the Birmingham Bridge, J&L should be there.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it was large. It was huge. It loomed over there. My brain still looks over coming off the bridge if you're heading to the South Side from the Oakland side and saying there's something very much missing here.
Right.
So I can't quite imagine what the workers feel or the families who had whole careers there, or in reality, families that had multiple generations living there. So,
well, what made you want to tackle the collapse of the steel mills and then Pittsburgh's recovery? Because there's been a few books like And the Wolf Finally Came that sort of touched upon some of these same areas, right?
So John Hare, And the Wolf Finally Came is a great book, and I talk about him in the preface. I got to know him a little before he passed away. Because he was cycling back to write about some of the topics. He's from McKeesport. I probably started to write more of an economics book. Why regions grow and change is kind of what I think about a lot. And we have a story here in Pittsburgh. I think just to get to that economics piece, it wound up becoming very much a history story. But in my mind, it's not a book about Pittsburgh. It's about all regions that need to change and how that happens. But I think most people will read it as a history book, but that's fine.
Yeah, sure. So what's interesting to me is that everybody knows that watches this, that I wrote a book about the Beehive. And for me, that book is also about the Pittsburgh sort of finding its way after the steel industry, but it's through a very pop culture sort of lens, right? And how does pop culture influence the reemergence of a city? So this was sort of like the other side of that. And it was really fascinating for me to read about this in a way that I probably hadn't thought about when I was writing that book.
Yeah, I'm sure these things are all connected. I mean, my time in the South Side was before the Beehive era, so I kind of missed that. To me, the Beehive, I think I joked, was, I remember the Oakland Beehive.
Sure.
And when I actually read it, I didn't quite realize, I might have gotten it from your book or looking up your background on this, that I guess it opened up afterwards.
Correct.
And had a short career, but that was sort of my memory of it, and I always thought the South Side one came later, but I had that backwards. So
Yeah.
I defer to the experts.
Yeah, no, but it's really interesting because to me, the reemergence of Pittsburgh from my insular view was one of sort of neighborhoods, right? Like if you take what the Beehive did, there was this place, this community that was had collapsed because of the fall of the steel mills, and now there were opportunities for people, and it's sort of neighborhood by neighborhood. I saw the same thing. What I didn't think about though was sort of the bigger picture that obviously happened in Pittsburgh, and you really talk about it with things like the Allegheny Conference and all these other sort of think tanks and the politics and the machine that was behind really the redevelopment of this city. And we're going to go into a lot more things, but I just found it fascinating to think of the sort of macro view of this that I probably should have thought more about before I wrote the book.
Well, no, I'm sure you're fine on your book, but I mean, it is a regional story. Someone was telling me the other day, why did you skip other things? There is a city story, the story of change here in the city of Pittsburgh or neighborhoods. This is not that, and it wasn't intended to be that. Maybe there's a future book there, whether it's for me or someone else to write is another question. But the story of urban redevelopment and the neighborhoods, and those stories have been written in many other books as well. But yeah, this is everything got driven by the decline of steel. Yeah. So in my sense, we've lots of community stories out there. We all plenty of stories of the trauma of jobs going away in the Mon Valley and McKeesport and whatever. We've written about that. We know that, but I think we kind of skipped, why steel went away here in Pittsburgh, and that's sort of where the book sort of came from.
Yeah. Well, what's the biggest misconception that Pittsburghers have?
Oh,
do you think about the fall of the steel industry?
Oh, well, so we don't have time to get into this. So I grew up in the 80s. People were taking sledgehammers to Japanese cars, blaming them for the imports that were taking away steels. And to this day, everyone says, oh, it was foreign imports that destroyed steel in Pittsburgh. And there might be an issue there with the national steel story. But here in Pittsburgh, the way I summarize it very overly briefly is the competitiveness of steel in southwestern Pennsylvania peaked not 50 years ago, but 100 years ago. Right. And the book fundamentally is not about why steel went away. The book is about why steel didn't go away when it should have.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of that competition wasn't foreign at all. It's domestic steel production elsewhere in the U.S., other regions. It doesn't make sense to invest. I mean, this is a hard thing to hear, and I get in trouble for this. It doesn't make sense to invest in new steel production here in Pittsburgh. Now, recent news with Nippon Steel has screwed that up a little bit, but at the same time, there's most of what's happening in the steel industry is far from Pittsburgh, and that's a very different story than we all grew up with, where this was very much a steel region.
To Valerie's question and to expand upon it, two of the most fascinating facts for me in this were that there were several times where people came to U.S. Steel and said, hey, you guys might want to do something more than simply produce steel. Maybe make something with it. Yeah. And they said no every time. And that was fascinating to me. And also the idea that we've sort of all been sold this idea, even people that have lived here forever, that, the steel mill collapsed, but boy, Pittsburgh picked itself up by its bootstraps and we were on to the next thing almost right away. Yeah. And you sort of discount that as well.
Well, I mean, that's the big picture. And I it's a bit hyperbole, but, I think the vision that we like to tell ourselves is steel went away through these global things that we couldn't change. And the 80s came and we got together and pushed this big easy button that said we're going to become a technology region or something else. And we've all proceeded apace. And I don't think there's any truth to that. What you said a second ago, just to parse a little bit, U.S. Steel, I think, might have gotten the message that the book talks about. It was clear to economists and other folks that steel was going away, but no one liked that story. U.S. Steel actually, for a while, was in the hotel construction business. Yeah, they were making hotels in Florida. Some of those hotels still stand. Many people have stayed in them. They got in the real estate business. In fact, U.S. Steel, the steel building that we call it, those of us, as my young nephew, young relatives call it the UPMC building. It is not the UPMC building. I've had to strangle more than a few young person at that point. But that was really a real estate investment. Yeah. And in fact, what we're all dealing with downtown today is what's going to happen to what's called still for the moment BNY Tower. Was actually built by U.S. Steel as well. That was their investment. And the argument was that I think they saw the light for a while, and then it just wasn't really working, and they just stuck with what they were good at. Or not. So yeah, it's a complicated story. It's certainly much more complicated than steel just blew up and we all moved on. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing before we get to sort of the collapse of the steel mill was that I think your book drives home the fact, I don't think it gets spoken about enough, that Pittsburgh wasn't simply a steel town. It was really an energy town first. And that sort of drove the building of the steel industry. That was really surprising to me.
Fundamentally, why did steel come to Pittsburgh? And it really comes down to coal.
Yeah.
And not just any coal, but out in Connellsville, I mean, the seam of coal that was perfect for making making industrial coke. And 100 years ago, it was almost the only source of coal for coke. And that's what, why, Andrew Carnegie, put his steel plant here. It made perfect sense to. 50 years later, or after he did that, or even less, he would have had many more options because technology had moved on. But at that time, the economic geography of steel was in our favor. But that's a very ancient history.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what did Pittsburgh get right that other cities still struggle to do?
Oh, well, you're not supposed to ask me such hard questions. I mean, look, I think Pittsburgh has moved on a bit, kicking and screaming. There still is remnants of steel. I don't want to sort of say that there's not, but we have sort of picked up. There has been investment in, quality of life in ways that people didn't think about. This goes back to the original Pittsburgh Renaissance, where people realized that, it wasn't just about the industry that was here. We needed to be a place where we wanted to live. The smoke in the air, the quality of the water, flood control, and goes from that. I mean, you could be the best place. They still believed we were a steel region, but there was more to it than that. And I think a lot of the investments that have been made in quality of life has laid the foundation for us being a place where people want to live, as the competition for industry has changed, because we really compete now for people more than anything else, right? Industries have the ability to move lots of places. And at the end of the day, the thing that really holds up where new investment's going to go, new industries are going to go, it's where the workforce is. And so if we hadn't made those investments, we'd be in even more hurt now than we were in the past.
Yeah, I think you make it pretty clear that while Pittsburgh proper may have recovered, over time, that there's still cities like McKeesport and Duquesne and Homestead that are still struggling to find their way. Do you think that it's getting better for those communities now?
Wow. Look, it's a complicated story. We have not done well by the former mill communities, and I think to this day, the investments needed or the changes needed to sort of make these places viable in a sort of post-industrial sense have not been made. And whether they're on the future or not, I mean, there have been now a generation of efforts to redevelop. Braddock, PA, if people don't realize, is the poorest community in Pennsylvania. And it's ironic because it retains, and the Edgar Thompson Works is Andrew Carnegie's original plant. Few, if any, of those workers live there. Few of the residents of Braddock work at the mill. And they, it arguably is probably not a place that, is on people's list. You're moving to Pittsburgh, you're probably not saying, I want to live next to the steel plant,
right, and
whatever. So, look, there are a lot of great stories of post-industrial change. I think we had a deeper hole to dig ourselves out of. Mm-hmm. I mean, you asked me sort of what we did right. I think the answer, you got to put it in context of people put us in the same bucket as other Rust Belt places, Detroit and Cleveland and plenty of other smaller places. And what I try to lay out is we actually had a much deeper hole. The job loss, the job destruction, the population loss that followed. We are in a scale beyond those regions. A lot of the jobs came back to Detroit.
Right.
A lot of the jobs came back to Cleveland. They didn't suffer anywhere near as many of the young workers who left than we did. So we had a much thing. and it hasn't spread out to the whole region. So
and to follow up that question, one of the challenges that I think you make pretty clear is that a Detroit or a Cleveland or somewhere had one municipality, right? And Pittsburgh has hundreds when you get down to it. But I mean, really, 20 or 30 large municipalities. Some of them were made for the express purpose of a township that was made to support a factory, right? And so trying to find ways for all those people to work together was extremely difficult. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, this kind of, we can do a whole show just on this. This is Allegheny County in particular is the most fragmented local government structure in the U.S. I think that's the root of all evils here in town. But you separate that just for the sake of the book. A lot of the mill towns here were created to exist around a mill.
Yeah.
People thought that made sense. The mills are long gone. We're left with a municipal structure for a industry that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. And we haven't quite figured out how to deal with that either. I think that's what exacerbates all these issues of trying to change and move beyond. Again, it's very hard for Braddock on its own. It's impossible for Braddock on its own to summon the investment needed to make it something else. But that's what we've left with, and it's a wicked problem that no one's quite been able to sort out yet.
Yeah.
When you were researching for your book, was there any evidence that surprised you? Was there anything that you had to like, oh my gosh, like?
She always asks these hard questions.
I might have to come back to that. I mean, what really surprised me along the way? I don't know. I mean, I've been studying this a lot. The book was an evolution of stuff I've been studying. So most of it, I joke, a lot of it was just the research that I've collected in my office. I needed to do something with it. The book was the way to do with it. I'll have to come back to that. I'm not quite sure what anything truly shocked me other than sort of, documenting what I thought was obviously true to say, wow, they really said that. I guess the one thing that was interesting was let me make clear, again, everything in the book that I talk about, others before me came up with. I'm just the storyteller. Mm-hmm. What has happened in multiple generations are folks long before me saying what I say here, that steel was going to go away, and they were kind of ignored. And just the scale of that, there are actually whole reports where literally I found the memos like, don't let anyone see this, ever again. And we're literally suppressed in ways that just sort of are shocking. I guess that kind of shocked me. Yeah. Shocked me that I found the memos, but I mean, it may be less surprising that happened. I think someone forgot to burn a couple of memos along the way, but that's another topic. Maybe that's the best answer I can come up with. I'll come up with a better answer later, though.
Okay. One of the things that shocked me, though, was the book is filled with interesting tidbits, right? I mean, so it's not just I want to make this clear. It's not just a dry economics book where you're just reading numbers. There's real stories in here, first of all, but there's also interesting facts. And so the fact that really surprised me was that to expand the Homestead plant, I think it was, they had to excavate more dirt than even the Panama Canal. Is that correct?
I think West Mifflin. Because there was a hill there. I mean, one of the challenges here in the region is steel was so successful, we glommed up all the rivers.
Yeah.
Here we are, I think we were talking about the South Side earlier, J&L spanned both sides of the river. Those plants needed it. It was long ago, we ran out of space to do that. And that's been an issue. And then one of the newest steel plants in the region is the West Mifflin plant, built during the Depression. Yeah. And that required a lot. But I'll just go back to what you said a second ago. I do live in a world of numbers. A lot of people are shocked. It is all text here.
There's a few pictures in there.
There are a few. If you see me in any other context, what you normally get from me are a lot of numbers and charts and graphs, and words are kind of secondary. But again, it was meant to be a story, and luckily it worked out pretty well. And it does shock a few people.
Yeah.
So.
Why do Pittsburghers still identify as a steel town?
Wow. Now you're getting into psychology.
I'm just a steel town girl on a Tuesday night sometimes. But I had to say that. But why do we still feel that? Is it nostalgia? What is it?
At this point, I don't know what it is. I mean, look, clearly some things are very true, right?
Is that an easier question to answer?
Well, it's I at least I can answer it or not. it is more psychology or social psychology, to be strictly speaking. Look, we are a place where families, like not just that were born into steel families and died in steel families. There's plenty of documentation of father-son, mostly a male-dominated industry, father-son pairs working in the mills. I'm pretty sure if we looked hard, we could find a sizable number of grandfather, father-son pairs. So this was a way of life for most everyone. Those of us who remember the J&L plant, no one who was around when the J&L plant here closed here in the South Side had any memory of that plant not being there. Yeah. Right. I mean, you were born into this. There's no, even in a distant history, you did not know the time before that plant was there. And so I think that gets baked in. Today with younger folks, it does seem kind of kitschy and nostalgic. I joke, we're not about to name the Steelers the double helixes, I mean, I don't think that's going to go over pretty well, but it is very much a distant past. I think it takes some time. So
yeah. Why did you want to write this book?
Well, it's an extension of a lot of my work in a certain sense. I guess the question I get asked is, why did I write it? And the first answer is, it's sort of like the creature in the Alien that was just there, it had to come out, Yeah. So in that sense, that's the honest story. But the real question there is sort of why or how is this book even needed? Because there are a lot of books about Pittsburgh, a lot of books about the steel industry collapsing. And I think the core of that is what I think was missed, and why I felt there was a book to be written was, there's a whole story of the national steel industry and its challenges in the later 20th century, and new competition and shrinking maybe, and things like that. And I think people, when they think about Pittsburgh, never address the Pittsburgh story. They just assume that, well, we were a steel region, the steel industry had issues, we were just sort of went along for the ride, as it were. And I think there's a very different story here. Like I said, I think steel should have gone away 100 years ago. Yeah. And that story hasn't quite been said. The question is, why did steel not go away? Well, if you believe me that it should have started to drain away from the 1920s, well, the Depression happened. Right. That kind of froze industrial geography in place. World War II happened. We could talk about that. After the war, the steel industry had tremendous hubris. They thought they were on top of the world, but we had just bombed all their competitors out of existence. So, it wasn't really quite fair. And really only when all that got through did that industry, our industry, face actual competitive pressures. And it collapsed then pretty quickly. Again, by the 60s through the 80s, it was by the time the 80s is the end of a long process. That's not the beginning of the end of the steel industry. That is the end of the steel industry in Pittsburgh.
Right. I mean, you make the point that the steel industry moved an inch west a year, right, since it was formed outside of Pittsburgh. And that's just talks, I think, about the temperance of what was supposed to, be the temporal nature of of steel, which steel should have been in Pittsburgh. And then you do a great job of illustrating some of those things that sort of helped Pittsburgh maintain its steel dominance, like World War II. And I don't think anybody who I know knew that we were a shipbuilding town, right? That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, so I've spent a bunch of time in the Navy Reserve, so I had to get that in there. But there's a message there in that, Pittsburgh was good at many other things. We had an ancient shipbuilding industry. We brought it back during World War II. We proved we could do many other things. But the essence of the story of steel in Pittsburgh is that it displaced all this other activity. Yeah. I mean, we willingly, pushed this concentration of this one industry beyond what made sense. And that's part of the challenge when the 80s came. It happened so quickly, it happened so comprehensively, it caused a lot of trauma because we didn't have the diversification that we really should have.
Right.
Again, if you had just not displaced all this other industry over a century, we would have had a lot more to build upon, including, I'm not sure we're going to get shipbuilding back, but that's another talk.
Right. But you do also illustrate that there were attempts to bring in some other industries that, we flirted with that maybe worked, maybe didn't. And some of the reasons they didn't was because we ended up giving away so much money, to the plants that came in, Sony or Volkswagen or things like that, that it seems like Pittsburgh never really was committed to other industries. I don't know if that's the right way to put that.
Whatever attempts there were, none of them really caught on. I mean, and people. The story you're alluding to is people don't realize we made cars here. If you're old enough, if you're young, you don't know. Volkswagen built a large auto assembly plant in Westmoreland County in the 70s, and this was a tremendous news item. Mm-hmm. This was like the first foreign automaker. This is all common now. The first major foreign automaker. I have to put major in there because I have some colleagues. We go back and forth on how far back it goes. We've gotten back to 1903 as the first foreign automaker in the U.S. But people had forgotten that. People think the Volkswagen plant in Westmoreland County, that's not much of a diversification. That was still a manufacturing heavy industry thing. It wasn't much of a movement away from where we're at. But again, circumstances changed and that plant closed and the Sony plant after it closed. So yeah, nothing has really ever caught on the way steel did.
Sure.
So.
What do you love about Pittsburgh?
Oh, I think Pittsburgh is I'm born and raised here. I can't answer that objectively. This is where my family is and my friends are. I think we have a lot to offer. I think for folks wanting to move here, I'm going to be a little technical about the answer you want. I mean, this is a great place to buy a home and live and bring your family and raise folks. And we have tremendous natural assets. The rivers are great. So I could go on, but I mean, I've chosen to live here. So I don't need to, I'm not waxing eloquent, but I mean, I've made my choices to live here. So I think a lot of folks, and I've met a lot of folks over time who cycle through places in the world and this happens where they land and they choose, they're never moving on because I think we can.
Well, I grew up in Ohio. I came here to go to school.
Okay.
I moved to LA and New York and then I came back to Pittsburgh and I've been here ever since.
There you go.
I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
We're all that. So,
right.
so.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so I have a thesis statement that that
right.
one of the reasons Pittsburgh did so well, at least in terms of arts and culture, even when it was a steel mill town or when that steel mill industry was collapsing and it shouldn't have been, was that all of the railroad barons and the steel barons felt guilty right before they died and gave all their money to trusts and foundations. So you have the World Class Symphony, you have all these arts organizations, and that was part of what helped Pittsburgh survive at a time when other cities maybe didn't, right? I'm not saying you couldn't find great art in Cleveland or great theater in Detroit, but it didn't seem like it was in Pittsburgh. I'm assuming though that as an economist, you don't buy that.
Well, no, I think, so these are amenities. I mean, I could be very technical here. These are cultural amenities. A lot of amenities, are super important and they're more important now. Again, as I say, the competition for workers means that people sort of are probably looking for that. They're not going to go to a place that is woefully deficient because they have options and so forth. We are a place that had this tremendous wealth. And that wealth over this extended period of time people joke like this is a separate topic. We don't really do great. I know we love to say we do at generating new businesses in town, entrepreneurship. That's a challenge and a topic that I talk about a lot in a separate context. And people ask, well, what happened to all this great? Well, all that great entrepreneurship 100 years ago was so successful, it generated this corpus of wealth that today is what is a fairly sizable, unusual size of philanthropy in town here. And a lot of that money was invested in ways to improve quality of life along the way. And certainly without it, it would be, there'd be more challenges.
Sure.
Do you think we utilize our rivers enough or as we should?
We certainly are doing infinitely better than we did in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the book, I just allude to it, but if you don't know the story, I might have too short shrift. Like in 1988, there was this tremendous conference that came here right as things were kind of collapsing, and everyone in town was all impressed because then Prince Charles came to town and he gave a speech, and I believe the speech was written for him by some local folks, but nonetheless, we'll give him credit for it. But it was all about his core message was, hey, look, you've got these great rivers. Your communities don't have access to them because really if you lived in Homestead, you couldn't get to the river. you lived in the South Side, you couldn't get to the river because it was these steel mills were there, and you need to take advantage of the all the things you can do with rivers. And there have been tremendous folks, I guess River Life Today, Friends of the Riverfront, I can't even name them all, who have worked to make real access to the rivers. On my bicycle a lot. The city of Pittsburgh trail system is great. That didn't exist. Tom Murphy, who was mayor, really was instrumental in putting those. They're mostly along the rivers. So we are certainly doing infinitely better. You can fish in the rivers. You could not do that in most of industrial town. And it actually wasn't, I believe it wasn't even the steel mills that caused that, but the closed mines way upriver made it too acidic. So there were really no fish. There are plenty of people fishing now along the river. So we're doing better.
Yeah. Do you think?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask. Do you think Tom Murphy gets the credit that he should? Because I think he was so instrumental in sort of that second leap up from the collapse of the steel mills. With the stadiums, with a lot of the regional conferences that were done, with setting up Pittsburgh for the future. Do you think he gets the credit that he should?
I think history will be no, and the answer is no. I mean, I think Tom, if you look at the years that he was mayor, 1993 got elected, 1994 started. I mean, it might seem like after the collapse of steel, but in reality, everything was kind of coasting along. He had to face some very real, painful fiscal realities, and at a time when we wanted to move beyond steel. I apologize for the use. Required these investments in the rivers, in reinvestments in cultural things to make this a place to live, and he had to do it at a time that was probably the worst time in the world to do it. And I think his ability to do it, I think he's been on a worldwide tour since then, talking about transformation and change in Pittsburgh. It's a little curious, and I do know him. So Tom, if he's listening, Mr. Mayor, I think the people who don't hear that message the most are people here in Pittsburgh. Everyone in the world has heard Tom Murphy talk about the transformation of Pittsburgh, but here in town, where maybe it's too much one of our own. We can't really sort of take
that's fascinating.
So that's true. So.
Well, we're going to let you catch your breath. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back. It's Valerie and David from the Gen X Pittsburgh podcast with your Gen X Culture Drop for August 19th through the 25th.
Arts and Culture Drop.
David, we got a lot going on this week.
We sure do. Starting on Wednesday, August 19th, the Frick has just added 3 Monets to their French Masters exhibit. So if Impressionism is your thing, stop by and check it out.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la.
And if you want more, on August 20th, Billy Idol is at Star Lake.
That's going to be a good show.
It is going to be a great show.
Also on the 20th, the breakout sessions with Pioneer Records is going to be at Point Park University's Playhouse, Pittsburgh Playhouse. That's the record label that Ed Travisari, one of our former guests, run. And it's going to be a great night of music. In the city,
that's going to be cool. On the 21st, it's the National Aviary's Nowhere to Wear It party. So this is pretty cool. So if you have a great outfit that you want to wear, but you have nowhere to wear it to, you wear it there. They're going to have a traditional girl dinner and signature cocktails from 7 to 10. And if you don't know what a girl dinner is, you better eat before you get there. Check out theaviary.org for more details.
So who does that? Who has clothes at their home that they just don't wear? Do you?
I think most women.
I don't. Which is why on the 21st, Friday night, I will be at Friday Night at the Mattress Factory, where it's art and it's music and it's food, and you get to walk around the exhibits, and it's in the garden. It's a great time at the Mattress Factory. Space. One of our favorite places in the city.
Yes, it is. And on August 22nd and 23rd, it's the Great American Banana Split celebration. It's a little bit outside of Pittsburgh. It's in Latrobe, but did you know that Latrobe is the birthplace for the banana split?
I did not, but I do know that Latrobe is nowhere near just outside the city.
Well, it's a little bit out there, but still, there's goat yoga, there's a banana eating contest, there's a baking contest, a 5K, and a car show.
Also on the 22nd, Ron Donahue is teaching the class Intro to Plein Air at the Frick. So for those who don't know, plein air is actually French for outdoor painting. And Ron is a master at that.
Yeah.
He's painted every single Pittsburgh neighborhood outside somewhere.
Yeah.
So
no, it's
you're
very
learning
cool.
from one of the masters.
The masters. And on the 23rd, it's the final day of the Shadyside Arts Festival on Walnut Street. That goes from 10 to 5. That's always a great time.
It sure is.
Well, on the 24th, we have TLC, Salt and Pepper, and In Vogue at Star Lake.
I don't know one of their songs.
Dun, 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 dun.
Also,
dun, dun, dun,
on the 25th, Ugly Kid Joe at Jurgles, who I know exactly one song from, right?
Oh my gosh, David.
Which is I Hate Everything About You. And I think that maybe they did some sort of Cat in the Cradle cover.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows? But you know what? You'll be able to get that question answered if you show up on the 25th at Jurgles.
Yeah, they can answer that
They
for
sure
you.
can.
And also on the 25th, it is our podcast. We shoot on Tuesday nights at 6 o'clock here at Potomac Station Coffee House in Dormont. You can check the events page on our Facebook to see who our upcoming guests are. Our guest next week, oh my God, this is I'm so excited for this.
It's a big one.
It is Robin Fernandez. You remember him from the Metropole, from Rosebud, and from Bossa Nova, and from Hotel and Rosa's Cantina right now in Sewickley.
One of the guys who really created the scene.
Oh
the
my
Gen X
gosh,
scene.
I cannot wait to interview him.
This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, guys, thank you so much. Have a great week, Pittsburgh, and may your cookie table always have one more lady lot. We'll see you guys next week. Welcome back to Gen X Pittsburgh. We're here with Chris Briem. What current trends give you optimism? I can't even talk right now. Thank you for Pittsburgh's future. Thank you, David.
Look, I think people are learning the Pittsburgh story. I mean, I think the world has learned about it. I start the book out when the G20 came to town. And even then, there was a story when that was announced, the White House press guy said, we're going to have the G20. This is a meeting of foreign potentates, big news around the world. It's the middle of the Great Recession, so it's a few years ago now. But even at that time, this was 2009, 2010, people laughed. They thought it was a joke. They couldn't imagine Pittsburgh as a place that you would highlight for a positive story of change. And I think we've moved beyond that. I think people are learning it's here. I think, there are many challenges here. I'm not going to dispute any of them. But I think we've moved beyond that largely. I would like to see the post-industrial story extend to the McKeesports and the Duquesnes and the Mon Valley. And if I had that answer, I joke I wouldn't be talking to you. Right. I'd be out there telling people how to do it. So I and no one else has figured that out. But there's plenty of great stories here, and more for the future.
Yeah. Well. So I wrote a story, or I did some research for a story at one point when it seemed like maybe people were starting to move back into the city again, because one of the stories of Pittsburgh is that everybody moves away after college, right? And it seems like for a while it seemed like maybe we had righted that ship and people were starting to move back in. And so I was doing interviews with people who had moved to the city, young people, and I was shocked by how many of those people legitimately didn't know that Pittsburgh at one point had been the #1 steel manufacturer in the country, right? And maybe the world. And so I guess my question to you is, are we beyond the collapse of the steel industry in the city? Are we now a post-industrial city, or are we still feeling our way through?
So, I mean, if we're talking here about the city proper, the city of Pittsburgh is a place that the answer is yes. I mean, the last basic steel operation of note in the city of Pittsburgh was the former Coke Works at LTV in Hazelwood, and there's a whole story of how that came to not be a Coke Works today. It closed, and the efforts to rebuild a Coke Works there failed. The city of Pittsburgh, we could do a whole show on demographics. We can do that someday. if you really want to bore your listeners and watchers to death, the city of Pittsburgh is gotten much younger over the last 25 years. A lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, again, my employer, but other institutions of higher education are located in the city proper. That has really given it a stability, but it also brings in tremendous amount of young people every year. A lot of them do stay. We sort of feel they don't. That's actually a myth. They're not. We're very good at bringing people here for education. That's what we do.
Yeah.
It's not strange that they leave. If Penn State kept all of its graduates, State College would be bigger than Manhattan in a few years.
Yeah.
We are a big college town. If you want a factoid, I've estimated myself that about 40% of the young adult population of the city of Pittsburgh are enrolled in college.
Wow.
Like 18 to 35. Everything kind of pulses around the arrival of these new matriculants every year and their graduation. And I think the city of Pittsburgh is a story unto itself. The problem is that story doesn't extend to a lot of the rest of the region. I mean, there are a few examples, and people can say, this place is growing in that, and that's true. But the Pittsburgh region's 8 counties in southwestern Pennsylvania. If you think farther, even that, there are some real challenges as you get farther away from the city in terms of growth and change.
Well, so those were the serious part.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to ease up on the questions now, Chris.
No.
It's now time for our rapid fire rewind.
I'm worried.
This is going to be a little bit out of your comfort zone, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know you well enough to be able to say that. But we'll find out in a second.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. All you have to do is answer it. Okay?
I have to. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's very simple. Iron City or Rolling Rock?
Rolling Rock.
What's your favorite 80s or 90s band?
Oh, dear God. I don't know. I have to punt. You're the expert. I'm going to punt. That's okay. 80s or 90s band? No, sorry.
Okay.
My wife would laugh at me if I answered that. So.
Do you know your wife's favorite band?
I would probably, it's Metallica.
Okay.
There you go. We'll go from there.
All right.
Three Rivers or Heinz Field?
I don't know. I've actually probably seen more stuff at Three Rivers. We'll go Three Rivers.
Yeah.
So for the sake of 90 seconds here.
You're going to hate all of my questions, by the way.
Yeah, oh no.
What's your favorite 80s or 90s movie?
Rudy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I played football for 10 years.
Okay.
It's okay.
Turner's or Schneider's iced tea?
Oh, I gave myself a kidney stone drinking too much Turner's.
Turner's.
So, that's a true story.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I share that
Him
kidney stone. What was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to remember which ones I remember. What was the one where they were all like living as cavemen as they went through the tunnel?
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, the cavemen. What was that?
That wasn't a cartoon, though, was it? They
that
were like half alive.
Right. That was Land of the Lost.
Land of the Lost.
Right.
Oh, that's not what I was thinking. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm just thankful I have any answer whatsoever here. But
I think you were thinking of Thundar the Barbarian. Is that correct?
Oh, maybe. I'm going to have to look it up.
I don't know.
Oh. Okay. Donzi's and Chauncey's or Metropole and Rosebud?
Whiskey Dicks.
Okay.
What was your first concert? What we're seeing here is why some people are economists and other people don't get real jobs and become journalists.
I'm going to punt because it was probably late in life before I got to see any concert. I'm going to punt. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're done. You're done. I'm just with you.
Okay. Now I heard your answer already about this, and I will fight you for the correct answer.
Oh.
So Southside Beehive or Oakland Beehive?
Well, I mean, I already said the answer of Oakland.
I'm not going to fight you. I worked at Southside Beehive, so
it makes some sense. I'm getting the whole story here. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this is the final question. I don't know if you're gonna, but Atari or Nintendo? Or Commodore 64?
I I was too poor to have any. Probably
Yeah.
Atari.
Okay.
Atari is the true story, you know.
Yeah. Well, I had the Sears knockoff brand, so I'm
Yeah,
with you
okay.
about being too poor. So, yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us
It's
here
been great.
tonight.
Thank
Oh
you
my
all.
gosh,
Wonderful.
this
Yeah,
has been
really
awesome.
appreciate taking the time.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. No,
Yeah.
thank you all. So
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll come back again on one of our
Yeah.
boring topics.
Yeah. And pick up Beyond Steel. It's available everywhere?
Look, lots of local bookstores have it. If you're far from else, go to your local bookstore and they'll order it for you. I like that.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Chris,
Thank you so much.
We'll see you guys next week. The Gen X Pittsburgh podcast hosts are David Rulo and Valerie Christopher. Executive producer, David Rulo. Producer and graphic designer, Kim Rulo. Producer, Valerie Christopher. Video production and editor, Brent Isaac. Music by Neosound. Underwritten by Potomac Station Coffee House.